This is something that I was working on several years ago. I haven't even seen this for over a year now. And this is a controller drawing that I had drawn. This is now 4+ years old, and I worked on this for about a year and funded the development myself. And I controllers were really awful back then. We didn't have a lot of options, and I was planning on making my own controller. Was working with FlySky, and the intermediary that I was working with just stole my money and ran away. But I did fund some of the development myself. We went through a number of prototypes, which I just happened to find as well. This is one of them. This is an earlier one. The kind of design of this one was the original concept, but it was really awful. We had to go through a number of printed prototypes to get to the point where we finalized at, and then the company disappeared that I was working with. This is another early one, which I kind of modified by hand and 3D scanned with my dental scanners in the dental office for it to be kind of modified and incorporated into the design. But you can see, and like a bunch of hot glue and stuff too. But you can see eventually we landed on this design, which is pretty much a complete design. It does have all the internal engineering behind it as well. And I'll go over the features on the controller as well, which I think are a little bit unique, but I wanted to point out and show this also. So this is a gimbal that we were working on before everything fell apart as well. And there's a couple of really interesting things about this gimbal. One of the things is that the mechanism for actually tracking the stick movements is similar to that on the TBS Tango 2, which there's no wires or anything between the gimbal itself. There's a magnet in the base of the actual movement mechanism, and then there's a sensor on the PC board, which is entirely Hall sensor. It seems like it's magic to me that this even works, but this gimbal is kind of our starting point. It's entirely made of metal. Everything on this gimbal is made of metal, and that was just a quality thing. It's got really nice big quality bearings in it. The travel on the gimbal is actually not full travel, which was where we stopped working at because I objected heavily to not having a full travel gimbal. And yeah, the one big feature that I was trying to work on adding to gimbals is dampers. So if you look at a car suspension, you got springs, you got dampers. The dampers are really good for softening the ride, and the springs kind of rebound everything and keep it going. So why don't we have dampers in our sticks? If we did, sorry, there's like kids playing with bubbles next to me. But if we had dampers on our sticks, it would almost make it feel like we have force feedback, because if you move the sticks around slowly, you still get nice smooth motion. But if you try to push it really fast and hard, you get this resistance that just makes you feel like you're pushing something. So it's gonna inherently make mainly the novice and intermediate fly a lot smoother, but probably isn't really gonna help the pro that much because they're already so used to flying that it's not gonna make a difference what you give them. But I do think that is a really valuable feature, and the reason why we went to these the magnet only kind of mechanism is so that we had room to put dampers potentially in the system to try and damp the stick movements, and also tune the springs accordingly so that the whole system works really well together. Now, looking at some other features that I have on this thing, first of all, the shape is actually quite a feature because we did go through a lot of revisions. So this shape is specifically made so that it works really well for thumbers. Like your hand grip on it is really great, and I have I have really big hands, annoyingly big hands, and it fits my hands, and it also fits people with smaller hands, because I did send this around and have people try it out with smaller and bigger hands. So it's really nicely made for this thumb grip, but it's also made specifically for pinch grip. Specifically this little angled corner here, as well as the very vertical flat sides. If you want to do like a thumb grip only, it's better to have a controller that has this kind of like taper out, or this flare to the controller, so that you can, your arms are like at an angle, so it's easier to hold. But we got it to work well with this flat side, which what makes it so much better for pinchers, because when you're pinching, you need a flat surface to kind of rest your palm at, and the flat surface also needs to be kind of converging at the bottom so that it kind of stays in your palm, because you just don't have as much hand gripping the controller. But this fits really nicely in the hand for a pinch grip. This flat surface on top here is really, really nice to rest your middle finger on, which is I mean, I've investigated a lot of people that do pinch grips. People do them differently, but I've found that this little flat surface is actually a place where many people put their fingers to rest with a pinch grip. And also underneath, there is this little lump, this hump here, which you can wrap your index, your ring finger around. And this further helps, along with the hump of the other bottom side, this also further helps with the whole pinch grip. And so the whole controller is really, I mean, doing a thumb grip is a lot easier, but when you do a thumb grip, it's really, really, really comfortable to grip. Like your hands just hug the thing so nicely, and it's super, super comfortable. And then a pinch grip, it's so well balanced and so well like stuck in your hand, it makes it so easy to reach the sticks. The gimbal area is massive, so it's full travel gimbal. It's bigger than the gimbal area on a Taranis, the original Taranis X9D, which is still the benchmark in my eyes. We don't need a whole lot of screen, so the screen is really tiny, so it would be something like the Tango 2 with the tiny little screen. I am 100% fine with that. There would be no trims anywhere on it. It would just have little jog wheels or joysticks for trims somewhere around the controller, as well as a joystick somewhere for the screen. And one of the more innovative features in my eyes is that these little holes in the bottom, these are intended for battery straps. So you would be able to power this controller with any battery that you have from 2S to 6S, and it'll have a BEC inside to convert that power such that the controller will operate on 2S through 6S. So then you can not only balance the controller out by putting the appropriate size battery on there, you will always have a battery with you to power your controller. Like, you'll never have to worry about your controller battery, because you can always power it with whatever battery you have lying around. Also, it would take a full XT60 connector to make it even easier to power. And back then, we only had Crossfire with the JR, so it was designed to take the JR, but now this can even be shrunk down to the newer platform, and it would give you more room on the back to do what is necessary, what is necessary is that XT60 connector, as well as an XT30 connector to power the JR module, which is the Crossfire, because back then, even today, you needed an external power source to power that module. And typically I have two batteries strapped to the back of my controller, which is really frustrating. One inside, one big LiPo on the outside to power the Crossfire. I don't even power the Crossfire from the controller battery at all, so my controller batteries pretty much last forever, but it's this really big, wonky, annoying thing. So this is like a really nice small package, puts everything you need really in your hands, and makes it really, really easy to use, because you have so much flexibility with the power sources and how you power the module on the back. And the whole goal here was to make it really cost effective, like less than $100 a controller, so that you would basically have one controller for each radio protocol that you would use, whether it be the D8 protocol or FrSky protocol or FlySky or Crossfire or whatever that comes out in the future. And so those were some of the features. There's a couple other things on here that I came up with that I thought was kind of innovative, and some other things that are not shown actually on these designs at all. I have I don't even know where it is, the 3D model engineering of all the components and everything inside. But yeah, this is something I just wanted to document on video so that I have it. I've actually shared all my features and everything with Radiomaster, as well as one other radio company that was kind of a no-name company, in attempts to get them to fund the rest of the development, because making a controller is really, really expensive. I believe RDQ came out and said that they wanted to make a controller a while ago, and they kind of fizzled out, probably because they realized just how expensive it is to make a controller and how challenging it is to make a controller. It is really expensive. I spent a lot of my own money on it, and the company just disappeared. So that was a pretty big lesson learned. I had not been burnt like that by any overseas manufacturer, not necessarily Chinese, and it was a learning experience. So I'll take it as it is and move forward from there. But hopefully somebody found this interesting, and somebody kind of understood the concepts that I'm trying to include and add to the controller. I think the biggest advantage here, or the biggest value add components to what I've come up with here, just the basic design, are the the dampened gimbals, which would be a huge benefit to what we do. I really think it would help us a lot, specifically for flying while riding in a car. It would be really helpful. And also, the overall controller shape is something that we fine-tuned really carefully, and it's not offensive like the what was the Radiomaster thing that they made, or the FlySky thing that they made, that Underground FPV made, that was just like really offensive in my opinion, and it just didn't fit my hands at all. It's a traditional style controller. It has all the features you need, none of the features you don't need, plus a couple features added, and full-size gimbals that you can reach with big hands and small hands the entire area of the gimbal travel, as well as pinching. The entire area of the gimbal travel can be reached because the controller thickness is actually slightly reduced, such that the gimbal actually sits and it just barely touches the backside of the controller. Anyways, I can talk about this forever. But yeah, if anybody has any contacts to get any of this stuff made, please let me know. I'm going to try to track down the 3D model of the controller. If anybody wants it, I could always just scan this one as well, and you can just like refine it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.